G'day guys, Maynard here. StarCraft streamer, fan, and commentator. StarCraft 2 is coming up on its 9th birthday in a few months, and as weird as it may seem to be making a video about getting into the game 9 years after its release, the game's been enjoying a steady growth since going free to play in late 2017. The player base and viewership continues to grow, and I keep seeing new fans in Twitch chat for all the big tournaments. One day I thought, hey, what about those new people that are on the fence with StarCraft 2? I can't tell you how many gamers I've met that know about StarCraft but always say things like, it looks too complex to learn and play, or I tried watching it but I don't understand what's going on. If you're one of those people, then this video is for you. I want to show you that this game isn't as scary as it looks at first glance, and is a great spectator esport as well. On a personal note, for me, it's the greatest thing ever. Watching Brood War and StarCraft 2 has mostly replaced watching any other sport for me because I enjoy it so much. Would be a dream come true to help any of you fan-sitters feel the same way I do. So, this video is going to be broken down into a few parts. The first part will be touching on the playable races in the game and its resources, followed by a section on spectating StarCraft 2 with the idea of helping you understand what's happening in the game and talking about the observer interface, and then lastly, and probably even more importantly, steps I recommend to become a player yourself. So let's get into it. StarCraft has 3 playable races. Protoss, the high-tech psionic shiny aliens. Zerg, the biological xenomorphic nightmares. And Terran, the humans, guns, bombs, tanks, and war machines. These races are asymmetrically balanced and have their own strengths and weaknesses. I could get into them all, but for the purpose of simplifying things, which is what this video is all about, I'm going to be very generally explaining the races. Protoss units cost more, so you generally have less of them, but they're powerful. Zerg units are cheap and weaker, but they are known as the Swarm, their strength is in numbers, and Terran is somewhere in between. They have a mixture of weak and massable units and very big powerful heavy-hitting units. StarCraft also has 3 main resources: minerals, gas, and supply. Minerals is the blue stuff and is the easiest resource to accumulate. Your early units and structures usually only cost minerals as a result. Gas is the green stuff and is more scarce. Once you build your race's respective gas mining structure and a gas geyser, you can start mining it. Higher tech units, structures, and upgrades cost you a mixture of minerals and gas. Minerals and gas are mined by workers. The more workers and bases you have, the bigger your income, and vice versa. The third resource is supply. This isn't something you mine like minerals and gas, this is actually something you produce yourself. Each unit has a supply cost. Usually the bigger the unit, the more supply it will cost. How much supply you're allowed to have, otherwise known as your supply cap, is dependent on how many supply increasing structures you've built. Terran have supply depots, Protoss have pylons, and for Zerg it's actually a unit, the Overlord. Okay, so hopefully that was simple enough to follow and retain. This is all the basic information I think you'll need to be able to spectate the game and know what's happening on some level. Which is the next part of this video! There are a couple of observer interfaces for StarCraft 2 tournaments. They're pretty similar, and some tournament organizers prefer one over the other, but the big international tournaments, the ones largely funded by Blizzard, use this one, and this will be the one we'll go over right now. This interface is called WCS 3.0. While the majority of the exciting stuff is happening up here, we're going to be talking about the bottom of the screen here because it's the least intuitive. As a newer viewer, you'll see this interface and go, okay, this is too complex, I don't know what's going on. All those things I mentioned at the start of the video. That's okay, your boy Maynard is here to unpack it all for you, it's not so scary. The bottom left area is the minimap. It has the length of the current game at the top, the map's name underneath it, and then the actual minimap, which is a low detail overview of the movements of both teams over the whole map. Directly to the right of the minimap is the players' names, featuring their team color, their race, the map score, which is the number of maps won by that player in the series so far, and the size of the current series. Best of 3s, best of 5s are probably the most common. So if you're just tuning in, this is a great place to look first because it immediately shows you who's playing and where their series is at. So, for instance, is it 0-0 right at the start of the series? Is it the 5th deciding map in a best of 5 or an ace match or whatever you want to call it? Good stuff to know. Right next to the player name is their supply count. This is the combined worker and army supply, and we talked about supply during the StarCraft breakdown at the start of the video. It's one of the 3 main resources of the game. The left is that player's current supply, and the number on the other side, the /, is their current supply cap. Remember that the supply cap is the most amount of supply that a player can currently produce and is raised by producing more supply depots, pylons, or overlords, depending on the race being played. Sometimes you'll see this number turn red when the supply exceeds the current supply cap, which usually happens when that player loses their supply cap raising structure or unit. For example, you could lose too many supply depots or too many pylons or have too many overlords picked off. But what about the other two main resources you talked about, Maynard? Well, they're right here, guy. This is probably the most intuitive part of the interface, other than the player's literal name. The blue number is that player's current store of the blue resource minerals, and the green number is their store of the green stuff gas. The numbers to the right of the big blue and green number, which is the plus sign next to it, this is the player's current income in that resource per minute. Now, what's providing this income? That's right, you clever cookies, it's the workers. This number shows how many workers that player currently has, with each worker taking up one supply. Moving to the right further, we see the army supply of the player, which is the fighting units. This is great to give you an indication of who currently has the biggest army, keeping in mind that some units counter others, which might be a video for another time. Something that can also give you an idea of how powerful that army may be is upgrades. Units' base attack and armor upgrades can be increased via some tech structures in the game, and it'll take a little while to get used to what icon means what. Don't worry, there's not that many, but it does take some getting used to. I'll put a link to an image that provides the upgrade icons and lines them up to what they are in the description of the video below. And if you want, feel free to leave that link handy next time you watch some StarCraft 2 as kind of like a quick reference guide. But before you know it, you won't need it at all. You'll recognize those icons very instantly, trust me. This part of the interface takes turns with showing the player's current APM, which stands for actions per minute. APM and upgrades take turns every 10 seconds roughly to pop up in this area. This just basically gives you an idea how fast the player is playing. 300 to 400 is considered quite high, but there's definitely some players out there that are faster than that. The observer interfaces that tournaments use do have some more information on them, like tech resources losses and idle time, but honestly I don't think you'll see them too often as they go away when the observer has something selected, which is most of the time, so let's ignore this part. While resources lost and units lost are definitely important, the observer will usually bring those up in a more intuitive graphic when it's relevant. As far as understanding the units, structures, and all their relationships, that's obviously going to help your understanding and enjoyment when watching StarCraft 2, and I can make more in-depth videos on all those things if there's a demand for it, but I'm intending to make all these videos as easily digestible as possible, which means therefore keeping them as short as possible. The production tab in the top left becomes very useful as a viewer once you know what structures and units you're looking at. Also, you might have seen this icon a few times during the video, but this is the amount of workers lost by that particular player color. Commentators like myself will hopefully make it easier for you to understand what's happening in-game between the two players by filling in the blanks during a live match. When something is a big moment or worth bringing up, we'll bring it up and explain why, hopefully. If you're still left thinking what happened in this game, that's our fault. For now, I hope this section explaining the observer interface makes it a lot easier for you to follow along and keep track of things yourselves until you have a basic understanding of the game. So you're probably thinking, okay Maynard, so far I'm following, I'm ready to apply this new knowledge to the next StarCraft 2 tournament stream, but how do I get into starting to play this game? Well, viewer, I'm pleased to tell you that this is now easier than ever. You might remember me mentioning at the start of this video that StarCraft 2 has been free to play since late 2017. Yep, you can download it and play it right now. Download the Battle.net client if you don't have it already. You'll need to make a Battle.net account if you don't already have one, and then you click that gorgeous StarCraft 2 logo and install. Then you hit play when it's done. Easy! If this is the first time you've ever installed the game, then when you first open StarCraft 2, you're going to be presented with a prompt to make a character name. Pick anything you want, but don't be too naughty. Anything within 12 alphabetical characters. Immediately after this, you'll be prompted with several options: beginner, intermediate, and veteran. Doesn't really matter which one you pick, the only big difference is that veteran and intermediate will talk about several different modes of play in StarCraft 2, and beginner will take you to a tutorial, which I really only suggest checking out if you literally never played a real-time strategy game before or a MOBA. If you want to check out the screen or the tutorial later, it's accessible anytime using the menu. The next step is kind of up to you. One choice is to check out the campaign, and the first full 29 mission campaign, Wings of Liberty, is completely free, so you can get right into it. It is primarily Terran focused, but the most important thing the campaign will teach you is the basic mechanics of the game from mission to mission, like unit and army control, which is known as micro, but more importantly for newer players, production and economy management, which is known as macro. A couple suggestions if you go down the campaign route. First of all, if you're a brand new player, I suggest playing on normal or even casual so you can get a feel of the game without really getting punished too hard. And the next suggestion, which you can ignore if you're really not confident with the mechanics of the game, but I think it is important for watching the game and hopefully trying out ladder for yourself sometime. Normal and casual difficulty will have a lower default game speed. You might already notice this speed difference if you've watched a fair few tournament matches. I suggest raising this to fastest game speed, which is the same speed as multiplayer. You can do it using these commands that I'm showing right now on screen. Please do try it, and obviously if you're still struggling, there's no shame in leaving it at a slower game speed until you feel more confident. You're learning, it's all good. Another thing that I would really suggest trying to do while you play campaign is try to use as many hotkeys as often as possible rather than clicking on the icons. It's much better to get used to using them sooner rather than later, as hotkeys are right here by the icons, so you should be able to map them out. Another choice is checking out co-op, which is in my opinion super addictive. Pick a commander and level them up doing campaign-style missions with a mate, or just queue up and get assigned a random teammate. 3 heroes are free to level up all the way to 15. They are Artanis, Kerrigan, and Reyna, 1 for each race. The other commanders you can level up to 5, but you'll have to purchase them to max them out to 15. By all means, give it a crack. It's good fun, and it will help you with your mechanics, but the only thing that I would caution on for going down this route for the newer players is that every difficulty level under Brutal doesn't let you raise the game speed to fastest, which is again the regular multiplayer game speed. Brutal is, as you would expect, quite brutal on new players, so just keep this in mind. Now, if you're a brand new player but you're wanting to get ready for 1v1 like you've been seeing in all those tournaments, or you've had enough of the campaign and co-op and you're ready for the next step towards 1v1 ladder, then this is the route for you. Click the Versus tab and check out Training. Training does just as it advertises, gets you ready for multiplayer by teaching you the fundamentals of ranked or unranked multiplayer. Stage 1, you're given basic units only. Stage 2, you're given some more advanced units to play around with. And Stage 3, you have everything you would have in a multiplayer game. Click your favorite race and play. Start at Stage 1 and work your way through by following the instructions in the top left. But once again, I do suggest changing the game speed as soon as you start the game to fastest. Trust me, this change will really help you get ready for multiplayer. Also, in addition to that, same suggestion from the campaign. Please do use hotkeys as often as possible. You'll be used to the game speed and using hotkeys faster than you realize. Don't be afraid, as there's nothing at stake here, and you can always just quit and start a new game if things spiral out of control for you. Can't stress enough how important these things are for multiplayer. You can keep repeating the different stages as much as you like to help your fundamentals. Once you've completed the training stages, try out the different levels of AI. This is sort of an offline ladder between you and the in-game AI. All the tools of a regular multiplayer game are yours to play with, so it's like training stage 3, but the build order list is gone. You're going to be playing on current ladder season maps, which is also awesome, great for practice, and your AI opponents will get stronger the more times you beat them. This is a great place to practice some builds and try out everything you've learned so far. If you're having fun playing the game in these modes, then you know what? Multiplayer against actual real opponents is right around the corner. It's the only real next step for you. Now, I'm not an incredibly high-level player compared to a lot of my StarCraft commentator brothers and sisters, but I do have a lot of neat tips and tricks for practicing on and off the ladder that could potentially help a lot of you guys out there that are new or lower league or have ladder anxiety. This is definitely a video that I want to make in the future, and if that's something you're interested in, let me know. I'm really keen on regularly adding these kinds of tutorials or guides on my YouTube channel, because this poor thing hasn't seen any uploads from me in a while, and I want to show it some love. Please do show this video to a mate if they're on the fence about StarCraft 2 and don't know where to start, or are confused when they watch live tournaments. Drop a like if you enjoyed the video, hit subscribe and the bell if you want to be notified when I upload another one, and if you want to check out some of my own practice or casts, I'm live Monday to Fridays Australian Standard Time on Twitch TV/Maynard. Thanks for watching, much love, and happy StarCrafting.